We're here today at ICENTD-D3 and I've got the pleasure to be joined by you, Christian Burri from the Swiss TPH, and I was wondering if you could explain a little bit what you're currently researching, or which diseases you're looking at, and how this might tie into the wider themes at the D3 conference.
Well, at the moment I'm leading a department, one of 6 departments of the Swiss TPH, which is called Medicines Research. We are in Basel currently somewhat more than 20 people, plus about 25 in Africa. And within this department we basically have 3 lines of interest. One is providing services like a boutique CRO, 2 PDPs, 2 pharma industry, 2 academia, and whoever wants to run clinical trials in resource limited areas and poverty-related diseases. So we are in the middle of the topic we are discussing at this conference. The second line of interest, and what I'm leading personally, is we do research, operations research on how to best conduct clinical trials under limited resources settings. And the third is we try to capitalize from both, from the research plus from the experiences we get in our clinical trials, and transform that into teachings and trainings. The areas we are working on at the moment are sleeping sickness, quite a lot, malaria, schistosomiasis, neonatal asphyxia, tuberculosis. That's I guess that's the 5 main topics we are pursuing at the moment.
That's fantastic, and it sounds from your approach that it's not just about achieving and designing clinical trials. It's also very much about involving endemic countries and capacity building in that region. And I was wondering, do you also work with a wide network of institutions abroad, and if so, what might be your main collaborations at the moment?
Indeed, this is part of the mandate of the Institute, which is to improve the health of populations locally, nationally, internationally, and our approach, our strategy actually is very much focused on participatory approaches, partnership. So that's in the center of our interest. The Institute, which has about 750 members, does work from real basic research, the hardcore scientists cloning genes, looking into gene regulations, then all the way to policy making, including health economy, including following up M&D, monitoring and evaluation. So we span the whole area from basic to real applied research into implementation. And this always in partnership. We have a couple of strategic relations that go very, very far back, like in Tanzania with the Ifakara Health Institute. We have worked for 60 years. Actually, it was founded by Swiss STI, which now is Swiss TPH, and then 20 years ago transformed into a Tanzanian trust, of which we are still a member of the board of trustees. Similar example is Ivory Coast, where the Centre de Recherche Scientifique Suisse was founded also some 60 years ago and still is supported by Switzerland. We have other strategic countries, like I've been working in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, for 16 years now, and we have an office in that country. We have offices in, I guess at the moment, 16 countries, and we work in around 50 countries worldwide. But it's always linked not just to projects but to collaborations, and whenever we do also clinical trials we have a very big interest in building capacity at local levels.
Those are really fantastic examples. That's incredible. And we've heard today a lot about the emerging technologies, and particularly on the diagnostic side, the huge amount of options becoming available, and you're so involved in knowledge transfer, and I was wondering, how do you feel might be the best way in future to kind of align all of these breakthroughs with needs in endemic countries and with local capacity, and kind of making sure that treatments and technologies are really taken up?
It's work at many different levels. For many years, organizations like the Wellcome Trust, like EDCTP, other funding agencies have focused very much on training of scientists, which is fantastic. We have at the moment in the order of 150 PhD students in-house, and about half comes from the south, which is very important to actually create the basis for future work, to have a very stable and strong workforce, even if part of that workforce, of course, goes abroad. That's part of it. And the other thing I have been advocating for quite a long time now is to actually train managers and to build up management competency in research institutions, of course, to actually give people a career track, to give people a perspective, to have a portfolio of projects, and on the other hand, of course, also in the ministries, to have better management of what is available, and to better manage the limited resources. The more limited the resources are, the better the management should actually be, which is not the case, of course, today. So I think that's the very key thing for the future, is to have stronger managers and to have good researchers working together, and then also, of course, then the collaboration with the North to really see what is happening and doing this together. But again, and I would really like to emphasize that without having good management in the South, we can come up with whatever idea, it won't be taken up.
That's a message, well, that you've very clearly made there, so thank you for that. And so, in general, looking at, we've heard a lot about the future models and of partnerships and of drug discovery. What would you foresee being some of the main challenges ahead, and how is Swiss TPH, or perhaps your group specifically, looking to anticipate those challenges and overcome them?
Mm-hmm. There's general challenges in drug development, which is funding that is restricted, plus also funding at public health levels, also in the North, that is becoming tighter and tighter. And we are currently really reflecting of whether the model of drug development that we use for neglected diseases, which is this consortia approach, the product development partnerships, couldn't actually be a role model for big pharma, because the development cost for drugs go up and up, and the available funding is going down. So we are actually opening a huge gap in that area. Maybe actually our very small field could be a role model to learn and to improve drug development for all. So that's one thing that I see upcoming as a big political topic, not only as just like touching neglected diseases. The other thing is the electronic revolution, which is also touching our team, and we have to really reflect today, how do we do our work? What tools do you use? We, for instance, if you do monitoring of a clinical trial, typically we spend long terms and long times on site to check data and to check the coherence of a clinical trial. And this is more and more replaced by actually remote checking of data. At the same time, if you don't go on site, you lose your local knowledge and you lose the contact. So for us, one of the big challenges at the moment is how can we actually optimize this to actually reduce cost of drug development, to reduce traveling, and to still be in real touch and not just like remote controlling from somewhere. Mm-hmm. And another challenge I see, which is never talked about, is we are now transferring a lot of capacity to the south, and southern countries, of course, are more and more involved in dictating or developing, whatever word you choose, the research agenda and the funding agenda. On the other hand, we can foresee that for quite some time the North will still be important for development of the South and for collaboration, as we have also North-South collaboration. how can we guarantee careers for people interested in neglected diseases in the north in the future? How can we fund this? And how can we maintain this interest? Because at the moment, for instance, we already see a shortage of real parasitologists. We have tons of people who can do molecular parasitology, you know, gene cloning, whatever. But if somebody should have a look into a microscope, it's only the old generation who can do that. And we have seen similar situations in the 90s with tuberculosis. Tuberculosis was neglected for like 20, 30 years. And there was an outcry by the WHO in the 90s. Where are there these specialists on tuberculosis?
Mm-hmm.
Why are there none?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it was not sexy to work on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
And the same may actually come up for neglected diseases if researchers in the north don't have a motivation, young researchers, to go into that field.
Absolutely, and there's also a lack of medical entomologists. Now you're describing this shortfall, so basically, again, another very, very important role for a leading academic and training institution like the Swiss TPH. So thank you very much and we look forward to receiving more updates out of your group, and hopefully seeing you soon again. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.